Welcome. Let's talk about the next 10 questions for your GS paper 2 2019. Now, the first question talks about on what ground a people's representative can be disqualified under the PRA 1951. So, very simple question: when it is found guilty of certain election offense or corruption practices, or any point at which there was imprisonment that was seen, failing to lodge the accounts for election expenses. So, those are some of the ways under which the PRA Act 1951, a people's representative can be disqualified. And what are the remedies for the same? There could be a kind of question call that could be done. The governor or the president can bring a change in the act that was given under the Election Commission of India. If there is any inquiry with the civil court, if that summon is going on or the reinforcement takes place in the case of attendance of any person, then that could be taken into account. So a very direct question from the concept that is being asked, a very theoretical question. The next question: Parliament's power to amend the constitution is limited power and cannot be enlarged to absolute power under Article 368. Now, what happens is, under this article, Parliament is trying in a way to amend the addition to the constitution in according to the process that has been laid down by the law. So there has been various constitutional limits that has been there, and a way to bring in more union and state into in line with the case. So Keshav Nandan Bharti case, you have the Minerva Mills case, Chandra Kumar versus Union of India case. Those are some of the major cases that have been part of it, where you are trying to bring in Parliament's power to amend the constitution and explain how the limits have been there. The next question talks about reservation seat for women in the local self-government has limited impact on patriarchal character. Even if a woman is being appointed, she is only a rubber stamp. Most of the decision comes from the rest of the punch. Similarly, there is lack of exposure, a lot of household responsibilities, stereotyped society, traditional norms that are being followed in the society, family burden that could be seen, are some of the reasons which have further, despite of the fact in numbers they are considered as 1/3, but in practicality it's mainly a patriarchal character that is being reflected in most of the local self-governing bodies. Now, Attorney General, who is the chief legal advisor, gives advice to the government of India on the legal matters. He is the first lawyer of the country to discharge the functions which are related to the president. If president needs any suggestion based on law, Attorney General is one who answers those, and this is the highest law position in a country. So it appears to be on behalf of the Supreme Court as well as the government of India, and represents India in case of any other issues that come up with the government of India. So Attorney General is one who represents the government in the Supreme Court under Article 143. The next question is, individual parliamentarians' role as a national lawmaker is on decline, which has adversely impacted the quality of the debates and their outcome. Now, it was for the first time that a private member bill was passed in Rajya Sabha, and that was the transgender bill. Since then, which was in 2004. Since then, from a period of 2004 till 2019, there has been a significant decline in the number of private member bills being passed in the Lok Sabha or the Rajya Sabha. And this is mainly because of, might be, we can say, a lot of bureaucratic structure that goes in. There has been a shift in the lawmaking ordinance that has been taken into account, and obliging the party when you are in the main line rather than considering a private member bill has been one of the major ideas, and this over the years has degraded the quality of the parliamentarians and the role of the parliamentarians. The next question is, in context of neoliberal paradigm of development planning and multi-level planning is cost effective and removes many more implementation blockage. Definitely, multi-level planning is good because it tackles the issue of corruption to the root. There is much more simplification of the process that is seen. People are now much more actively involved. There is much more deepened democratic participation that is seen. Regional disparities are reduced. You have better supervision, better monitoring, and better competitive and cooperative federalism that is seen. The next question talks about the need for cooperation among various service sectors has been an important component for development. Now, partnership bridges have been seen along the various sectors, and this has brought about a culture of collaboration collaboration and team spirit. Now if we look on to the various sectors, you have 12 major sectors which range from education, finance, health, tourism, transport, legal. So let's say these are some of the major sectors, and each one of the sector is dependent on another sector. So if there is a health sector, it would require electricity, it would require infrastructure, it would require IT enabled services. Nowadays there would be environmental concerns where we are talking about green building for, let's say, aims. So what is happening is it's a kind of collaboration and team spirit across the motion of cultures that is seen, and that is what leads for an overall development. So let be it Bharatmala project, be it Bharatnet project, each of these projects are not focusing on one specific criteria, that is building the roads or bringing in digital literacy into the rural area, bringing in fiber optic fibers into the rural areas, but it is connecting the other sectors as well, and therefore it is a collaborative scheme. The next is performance of welfare schemes are that are implemented for vulnerable sections is not so effective, and that is due to absence of awareness and active involvement. Now when we are talking about this, we need to focus on ineffectiveness of the policies that are there, weak professional support, either there is too much optimism or too much realism that is seen, there is no proper database, there are constraints in analysis, delays in the clearance mechanism that is seen, the project management is inappropriate, there is inability to make prompt decisions for the same, there is no consistent approach for the same, the time frame is very loose, there is no strict timeline that is being followed for the project completion, and then definitely corruption, no transparency are some of the other issues that affected. The long sustained image of India as a leader of oppressed and marginalized nation has been slowly and gradually disappearing on account of the new emerging global order. Now, when we are focusing on new emerging global order, Quad nations is one of the concepts that we look on. So, where you have Japan, India, US and Australia working together to counter China. Then you have differentiated responsibilities, the economic development, the skill development, the India's views towards foreign policy, and those have brought India into a picture or into a limelight where it appears as an emerging global order, which is less focused on the issues of oppressed or the marginalized sections of the society. And there has been changes with the founding members of the NAM that had been laid down, the non-aligned movement, the idea of peaceful coexistence, end of any kind of imperialism that was seen, to a kind of leadership era which has brought India into a state where we are moving from idealism to realism. We are trying to prioritize our collective interest as a developing nation. The last question talks about what introduces friction into the ties between India and US is that Washington is still unable to find for India a position in its global strategy that could satisfy India's self-esteem. Now, in this we would focus on various kind of trade relations, various kind of economic ties, export and import regime, focus on relations with Russia, Africa, West Asia, and so on. So those are the things that we would have to bring into picture, and we'll have to see how economic policies and how generalizations have been working, and this strategic hedging, which is a kind of continuous engagement of the major powers that is there in the international relations, is taken into limelight, and that there is where we need to focus on the contemporary aspects. So recent Trump visit could be part of one of those dialogues. So here is where we understand what kind of answer writing is very important for your paper 2. As we said, for paper 2 mostly you have the conceptual formulations which have you have learned during your NCRTs along with the recent cases that are there. So it's a kind of mixture of the constitution and the law that you have to keep into account while answering your questions for GS paper 2. We have already covered the analysis for your ethics and GS paper 3. Ethics case studies is a section where most of you are a lot afraid about, so don't worry, we have done an in-depth analysis on the ethics section. We will be covering many more in the upcoming lectures. Stay subscribed. Have a wonderful day.